All right, today we are cracking a case that's over 10,000 years old. How in the world did our ancestors manage to tame one of the most important animals in human history? The cow. Now here's the catch. This all went down long before anyone wrote a single word. So how do you solve a prehistoric mystery when there are no written clues? Well, let's dig in.
So just look at this contrast. On one side, you've got the aurochs. This thing was a massive wild beast, a true force of nature that our ancestors hunted at huge risk. And on the other side, the domestic cattle we know. They're smaller, they're manageable, they're a cornerstone of our world. The story of how one became the other is seriously one of the biggest pivot points in human history.
And that right there, that's our central puzzle. Think about it. There are no diaries, no instruction manuals, not a single text to guide us. So how can an archaeologist look at a pile of ancient bones and say, with any real confidence, yep, this is it. This is where the partnership between humans and cattle really began? That's the question we're tackling today.
Okay, so to solve any mystery, you first have to set the scene, right? So let's establish the time, the place, and the huge problem our ancestors were up against.
You know, what's just incredible here is the sheer scale of time we're talking about. Look where cattle domestication sits on this timeline. It's happening smack in the middle of the Neolithic period, right after people started to settle down. But we are still thousands of years away from the first cities or the invention of writing. We are deep, deep in prehistory here.
Our crime scene, if you will, is Southeastern Anatolia. That's in modern-day Turkey. Now, this place was a real hotbed of innovation in the Neolithic world. You could almost think of it as the Silicon Valley of its day, a place where groundbreaking new technologies like farming and herding were first taking root.
And here's why this all matters so much. Look, domesticating cattle is not like getting a puppy. These are huge, demanding animals. To manage a whole herd, you need long-term planning, you need people to work together, you need social rules. So when we find those first domesticated cattle bones, it's a giant blinking sign that human society was taking a major leap forward in complexity.
Okay, so before we can really get into the evidence, we need to properly meet the main character of our investigation, the wild animal that started this whole story.
Everybody, meet the aurochs. And I want you to forget every image you have of a docile cow in a field. This was a massive, powerful, wild animal. It was bigger, it was faster, and it was way more dangerous than any modern cattle. Hunting an aurochs was a super high-stakes team effort. The point is, this was not an easy animal to get close to.
So how do you get from hunting this fearsome beast to herding it? Well, the answer is domestication. And it is so important to understand that this wasn't like flipping a switch. It was a slow, gradual process, playing out over many, many generations, where people slowly took control of the animals' lives and their breeding, changing them bit by bit, year by year.
Okay, so we've got the time, the place, and the key players. Now for the really cool part, the evidence. How on earth do archaeologists read a story that's hidden in a pile of ancient bones? Let's open up their toolkit.
Right, so zooarchaeologists, and that's just a fancy word for scientists who study ancient animal bones, they have 5 main clues they're always looking for. You can think of them like different forensic tests. Now, no single clue is going to solve the case on its own, but when they all start pointing in the same direction, well, that's when the picture gets really clear.
First up, clue number 1 is just size. Wild aurochs were gigantic. But as humans started managing them, maybe favoring smaller, less aggressive animals, the average size started to shrink. So if archaeologists at one dig site see the cattle bones getting consistently smaller over a few centuries, that is a massive clue that humans are calling the shots.
Clue number 2 is something called the kill-off profile. And this is just brilliant. See, hunters are opportunists. They'll take down whatever they can get, so you find bones from animals of all ages. But herders, they're strategic. They manage their herd like a resource. They'll slaughter most of the young males for meat, but keep the females alive for breeding. That creates a very specific and very different pattern in the bones they leave behind.
And the other clues just add more and more layers to the story. Pathologies, things like bone deformities, can show the stress of being kept in pens. Ancient DNA, of course, can trace an animal's genetic family tree. And isotopes in their teeth can tell us exactly what they were eating and if they were being moved around by people. It all works together to build the case.
So the evidence trail shows us how it all happened, but that just leads to the biggest question of all. Why? I mean, why would anyone take on the enormous risk and the backbreaking effort of taming the mighty aurochs? What was the motive?
Well, the most obvious answer is also the most important one: food security. Hunting is a gamble. You might come back with a feast, or you might come back with nothing. But a herd of cattle, that's a walking pantry. It's a reliable, predictable source of meat and fat that you can tap into whenever you need it, especially when times get tough.
But it was about so much more than just meat. A single animal gave you a whole suite of other resources. You get hides for leather to make clothes and shelter. You get bones and horns that you can carve into all kinds of essential tools. Cattle were basically a prehistoric one-stop shop for survival.
And this might be the biggest game changer of all. For the first time in human history, wealth wasn't just something you could hold in your hand. It was alive. It was mobile. Herds became a new kind of capital. You could trade them. You could use them to seal an alliance with another group. You could show off your status. This completely rewrote the rules of human society.
See, this wasn't just about finding a new item for the menu. The decision to domesticate cattle had these massive consequences that would ripple out across thousands of years and completely transform the world.
And this revolutionary idea did not stay put. Domesticated cattle and the people who herded them started to spread out from southeastern Anatolia. They became a key part of what we call the Neolithic package that brought this whole new way of life, farming and herding, into Europe, into Asia, and into Africa. Entirely new cultures were built around the rhythm of managing these herds.
So if you take one thing away from all this, it should be this: domestication wasn't an invention like the wheel. It was a long, dangerous, world-altering experiment. It was this ongoing process that didn't just reshape the animals, it fundamentally reshaped us too.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? 10,000 years ago, our ancestors took a wild species and literally remade it to build their world. It really makes you wonder, as we keep manipulating our own environment with technologies they couldn't even dream of, how is the world we're building today continuing to reshape us?